Okay, we are back again. We're back again with another episode of A Dose of Reality. I'm excited. I'm sitting here with Rekhtu, Amakhu, Yaanuwn.
Ṛaḥubat. It's good to be back.
It's good to have you here.
Appreciate that.
I guess.
You guess.
Yeah, like I always say, I guess, because I'm unsure. I'm not sure about it. I'm sitting here in the presence of the self-proclaimed Dream Team. That's right, Nefrutat is here as well. She is the voice of God today. Nefrutat, say hello to the people. Say hello.
Greetings, people. Mm-hmm. I'm your conscience.
Oh, you're their conscience today?
Yes.
Yeah. She's your conscience. She's here to make sure you act right, so you'll hear her voice from time to time. I'm in the host seat. They declared themselves the Dream Team in my absence. The two of them, Rekhtu, Yaanuwn, and Nefrutat.
What's important is that it's good to have you back.
Oh, is it? Because it hurt. Because words hurt.
Yeah, I thought I caught a vibe.
Yeah, you did catch a vibe.
Earlier.
Yeah, that's why I'm hyped. Because it still stings. But we spoke about it behind the scenes. Behind closed doors. We hashed it out. We're good now. We're okay. Right. Don't take me seriously. Today, I'm excited for this episode. We are going to be speaking about the Philadelphia experiment. Okay, now for an experiment that didn't take place, and for our audio listeners, I just did the double quotes with my fingers. I just didn't take place. Mm-hmm. It's quite a famous one for one that didn't happen. Apparently, a lot of people might have heard about it. If you don't know details about it, you've probably heard the term Philadelphia experiment. It's out there. There's at least 2 movies that I know of about the incident. Various documentaries, articles, people speaking about it, so on and so forth. So it's known enough. People know the term at least, and people know they know something happened in Philadelphia in the 40s. They know something happened. So that's what we're going to go into. This is a story about invisibility, teleportation, time travel. Whether these things were done with purpose or accidentally is a different question, but these things happened, these things occurred. So we're talking invisibility, we're talking teleportation, we're talking time travel, we're talking about effects and results that in some ways were horrible. Some might say catastrophic. People suffered as a result of this experiment. And we're still dealing with the results in some ways up to this day. It still affects the planet to this day. It's a very important experiment. And it did take place. And it took place in Philadelphia, hence the title. So that's what we're diving into today. I'm excited. That's why we've got Rekhtu with us, because he's the expert. And he's going to walk us through this story. Where I wanted to start with it actually was who headed the project. We know that to be Nikola Tesla, but how did Nikola Tesla come to be heading this Philadelphia experiment? How did this begin? How did the ball start rolling on this, if that makes sense? So we'll start with Nikola Tesla, and we'll lead into the experiment.
Yeah, so Nikola Tesla, certainly one of the most important scientists and inventor of what you might call history in that respect. So the journey, as far as we're concerned, starts in 1884, where he's working for Thomas Edison.
Right.
Now, Thomas Edison's company was developing a system of direct current, and Thomas Edison and Nikola Tesla was working for Thomas Edison during that period. He only worked there for about a year because basically Thomas Edison promised him lots of money, something like $50,000 or something like that, to help develop his direct current system. And when Tesla spent countless nights and countless hours without sleep, working on this system, when he did finish, Thomas Edison was basically like, yeah, that was a joke, psych, basically.
That's wild.
Yeah.
That would upset you.
Yeah.
So he didn't pay him. That's messed up.
So as you can imagine, Tesla left quite hastily after that.
Yeah, that's the least you would do is leave hastily. Yeah. I've heard a couple things about Thomas Edison.
Me too. Yeah. So I was going to say, I've heard he was a con man.
Yeah, con artist. Fraud. Yeah. Obviously he gets a lot of credit for the light bulb. But we know the
Latimer
invented
the carbon filament that powered the light bulb. Without it, wouldn't have worked.
We have no light bulbs that actually work, so that we know that. So yeah, Thomas Edison, I've heard a couple things about him, so no real surprise there.
Yeah.
So Tesla worked for him for about a year. Didn't get paid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Tesla moves on and he's developing a system of alternating current. So maybe you have two, when it comes to electrics, you have two main systems, direct current and alternating current. So Thomas Edison's company was concerned with direct current. Nikola Tesla is working on the system of alternating current. Now, his inventions and the development of his work caught the attention of George Westinghouse. So in around 1888, George Westinghouse basically said, Tesla, would you like to come work with me, essentially? And he did. So mind you, one of Tesla's most important inventions is the induction motor, the AC induction motor. So if anyone knows anything about electronics and knows anything about motors convert electrical energy into mechanical energy. So anything you see performing mechanics or movement that's electrically powered, there will be some sort of motor involved, if that makes sense. So everything from a washing machine to a train to even those little electric toothbrushes would have some form of motor inside it. And Nikola Tesla was responsible for developing the AC induction motor, which basically used the technology of electromagnetism or interacting magnetic fields to work, essentially.
Got you. So quite crucial, I guess.
Quite crucial, heavily used today. So quite crucial. So one of the most important inventions. So anyway, in 1888, he works with Westinghouse for some time, and they're developing the system of alternating current. And then there's essentially some sort of battle between Thomas Edison's company and George Westinghouse's company. Business battles that we see all the time. We see them all the time. You know, the last big one I can think of was HD DVD versus Blu-ray. When HD DVD and Blu-ray first came out, there was a battle, and eventually Blu-ray won it out. So, you know, these are the kind of business battles you see today. And in today's technologies, direct current and AC current both have their place. You'll find that direct current is more used on small systems and AC current is used on larger scale systems. So it's predominantly an alternating current world, if that makes sense.
Got you. So in a sense, AC won, but DC is still crucial.
DC is still crucial.
Got you.
DC is still crucial. But yeah, when you're talking large electrical, you know, big things like electricity suppliers and things of that nature, they're using AC current. You know, what's essentially used to power your house is AC current. So on a bigger scale, alternating current is used, but on a smaller scale, you still have DC current. So yeah, now mind you, as it approaches 1899, 1900s, Tesla wants to start working on projects on his own. He had a few ideas in mind, and he had the backing of a banker called J.P. Morgan at the time. One of the biggest ideas he had in mind was to develop free energy or free electricity for the world. So he was working on a system where he was building a tower that would be able to wirelessly transmit electrical energy. And his plan was to place these towers, you know, calculate where these towers should be placed all over the globe, essentially, and we would have some sort of free energy. Needless to say, that was shut down because free energy, are you having a laugh?
Free isn't money.
Free isn't money. I mean, that is upsetting to hear. You know, because every month you look at the electric bill come through the post, and it hurts. It hurts us all. And you know, Tesla was trying to fix that. He was trying to give us free energy.
Which, when you think about it, electricity is a natural phenomenon, just like water. So there's a lot of things that they've capitalized on that you can get for free.
That naturally occur.
Nature produces it.
It reminds me of that run. Who did that run recently? They're charging us for water.
We're paying for grapes.
For grapes? The guy from Disney. Yeah. He was right. I don't know if he was right about other things, but he was right about that. He made it clear they're charging. They naturally occurring. By the way, a quick plug, OTL education. If you want to know how electricity is naturally occurring, we break it all down for you there. You got to have your foundational science, because sometimes we dive into things that are out there, and if you don't have your foundational science, if you don't know what atoms are, etc., how electricity works, some things might go over your head, if that makes sense. So yeah, educate yourselves, and we're here to help educate you. But yeah, that hurts. That hurts because we could have had free energy.
Yeah,
but they shut him down, and we can understand why they didn't
Yeah.
shut him. Why they shut him down, if that makes sense. It's the same reason the medical world gives you the medicine, but not the
Not
cure.
the cure, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
One time customer, no, no. Customer for life.
Yes.
Hooked on the medicine.
Yep.
Yes, we like that. Apparently, we don't like that.
It's wrong.
Yeah, it's messed up. So yeah, so he was working. So he started working on his own devices
That's
or his
right,
own
that's
ideas.
right. So there's a few things he uncovered in the 1900s. One of the things that he regarded most important in his life was the uncovering of terrestrial stationary waves, where essentially the Earth itself could be used as a conductor, so you could pass electricity through the Earth in that respect. You know, there was like we said, he was working on the free electricity or the free energy, and eventually, you know, was shut down, and JP Morgan pulled his funding. Another thing that he uncovered was that one time he heard radio signals, mathematically calculated radio signals, and he knew they came from outside of Earth. They were extraterrestrial in nature. They came from outer space. And he told his scientific peers, the press, etc. He was ridiculed for that, given the term the mad scientist. Tesla, what are you on about signals from outer space?
Right.
So, mind you, what the master made us aware of is that Tesla himself was an extraterrestrial. He was a Venetian. So basically, not too dissimilar story to Superman, actually, in the terms that basically at birth he was brought to the planet and had some carers that took care of him and knew his secret, but didn't ever tell anyone.
Right.
So he was a Venetian.
Right.
Anyway,
we got to go into that more at some stage in terms of his origins.
Indeed,
Yeah.
indeed,
Yeah,
indeed, and the many extraterrestrials that are among us.
Yeah, there's many of them. We'll go into that.
So yes, Tesla, following those signals that he received and the curious nature that he had, by 1918 he had developed something called the Teslascope, which utilized radio waves to communicate with entities in outer space. So what that means to say was Tesla was indeed in contact with extraterrestrials or beings or entities in outer space using this Teslascope. Now, during many of the projects that, you know, didn't go well or didn't go to plan, at one point he wanted to start his own company and things of that nature. Tesla eventually was short of money. Right. And when it approached the year 1930, Tesla was given an offer by, actually at the time, President Roosevelt, who came into term shortly. I think it was about 1933 he came into term.
So he wasn't the president
at that point
when he pulled him into the project.
Exactly. Yeah. But he was high ranking within the government, if that makes sense. So he had connections. Anyway, Roosevelt made Tesla aware that this project was coming up in around 1930 and asked Tesla if he wanted to be a part of it. And it was essentially a project to develop invisibility, referred to then as Project Rainbow.
Got you.
So Tesla, being short of money, said, absolutely, I will. Absolutely.
I need a check at the end of the month. I'm going to help you out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, remember, these are the times, when you're talking about the 1930s, you're talking about sort of time era between World War One and World War Two. So you had a lot of projects going on. You had Oppenheimer developing the atomic bomb. You had a lot of different projects going on that were to aid war. So the idea of Project Rainbow was stealth, essentially.
Got you.
Make their Navy ships invisible so that their enemies literally can't see them come. So,
and this was at this point initially optical invisibility. So you can't be seen.
Invisible to the naked eye, so to speak.
Got you.
So you can't. So the ship approaching can't be seen at all. Now, by 1936, Tesla is spearheading this project. So you had people that came aboard this project. You had John von Neumann, who was a known scientist and mathematician. You also had two men called Alfred Bielek and Duncan Cameron, who were brothers, who came aboard the project. And a bit later, you had people like Thomas Townsend Brown, who was known for his knowledge in gravity and and anti-gravity and things of that nature.
Got
So it was like a project. You know, if you've seen the film Oppenheimer, you saw that Oppenheimer spearheaded the project, and he gathered people together, and you know, people input their different ideas and their different talents, if you like, to develop the project. Now,
so we're getting to the project now. So that's really, we know Tesla in his capabilities and why he was called onto the project. Roosevelt was the one who called him on, and now we're here with these other scientists, and we're trying to do this.
Yeah, we're trying to do this. Yeah, they're working for the Navy at this point, for the government, whatever, trying to aid them in war, essentially.
I suppose Oppenheimer's a good example of that. If people want to, you know, gather a sort of visual image of what was taking place, Oppenheimer's probably a good movie to watch in that sense. Yeah, because you had that exact same scenario: the Navy doing, or the military doing what they were doing, and they called upon the scientists to gather and go and try and work on what they're working on. Yeah, if that makes sense.
And you have those two aspects. The scientists are there because they love science. They're doing science, but the Navy are there because we need to win the war. So you have those two sort of entities or ideas collaborating together, those two concepts collaborating together. So, yep, you have 1936, Tesla spearheading the project. Tesla is not just managing, he's not just a director, he's getting his hands dirty. In fact, a lot of the work is done by Tesla himself. So a lot of the coils, a lot of the generators, a lot of the equipment that's being developed is being developed by Tesla firsthand, and people are assisting him like Alfred Bielek and Duncan to develop that equipment, but he's getting his hands dirty. Now, 1940 was the first test run. They tested the invisibility on the Navy ship at the time, and the test was, for all intents and purposes, successful. So no one was aboard the ship, mind you. They just had the equipment on the ship and flicked the switch, and the Navy ship went invisible to the, you know, naked eye, optically invisible. And it was a success.
Okay.
Couldn't have gone better.
Test number one was a success.
Yay.
Yeah.
Gonna win this war. I must have been excited.
Yeah. So at that point, the Navy's sort of next aim was, well, we need to run this test or develop it such that it's at a stage where when people are aboard the ship, this works as well. And Nikola Tesla had some serious concerns about this. One of his main concerns was the amount of electrical energy that they're using to develop this technology. It essentially was dangerous to have people aboard the boat. You don't know the effect that it's going to have on the people. The Navy are like, whatever, just get on with it. That's sort of their mentality. We're at war.
Just get on with it.
Yeah. So as you recall, as I said, back in the 1900s to 1918, when he developed the Telescope, Tesla was in contact with extraterrestrials. And in fact, a lot of the ideas he was developing was sort of, you know, bouncing off these collaborations with these entities. Yeah, literally. So at the time, Tesla was in communication with what you might term his friends or whatever.
Okay, so you're talking the 40s now.
So we've had the first successful test in 1940.
Okay.
And yes, going back to the 40s.
Yeah, but what you're saying is leading on from the fact that he developed that Telescope in 1918.
Correct.
Even all the way up until the 40s, he's still in touch with certain other beings outside of the
communicating via radio signals, if that makes sense. Now, these entities said, don't do it.
The alien said no.
Don't do this. This ain't gonna go well. Now, between the collaboration, Tesla established what he needed to do. At least he claimed he knew what he needed to do, but he needed more time. So at this time, Tesla was given a deadline of 2 years. So from 1940 to 1942. So 1942 being the next deadline. And Tesla went back to the Navy. The government said, well, I know what I need to do. This isn't going to work. I need more time because I know what I need to do to make it work, if that makes sense. The Navy said, we can't give you more time, essentially. You've got to meet that deadline, which is understandable from a certain point of view, because if you're at war, you can't be like, Japan, Germany, 1 second, we just need to get this done. Then we can resume war after that.
In a little bit. Just give us 6 months or so. That needs invisibility working.
Yeah.
so we can beat you.
Yeah, we need a fair war here.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
So, you get that. Tesla was hesitant about this, didn't want to be responsible for the lives of these men. So when it came to the test in 1942, where there were people aboard the Navy ship, Tesla purposefully sabotaged it so that when the switch was flicked on, nothing happened, essentially. And Tesla walked away from the project.
Got you.
Yeah, he just said, I won't be responsible for the lives of these people. And he walked away from the project.
Walked away. Quick question. At this point, at the time of this second test that he sabotages, this Navy ship, is it just any Navy ship or is it the Navy ship?
It's just it's a small Navy ship at this point.
Okay, got you.
Not the infamous USS Eldridge, which we'll get onto. Right, so at that point, Tesla walks away from the project. The Navy, the government, whomever, the powers that be, send the Men in Black or the Majestic 12 to keep an eye on Tesla, essentially.
Right, so you just threw in a little gem there.
Yeah.
The Men in Black, the Majestic 12, we got an episode on that coming up. Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones.
Yeah, they was up to no good.
They was up to no good. They was bothering people.
No, but I'm excited for that episode.
No, we are going to talk about the Men in Black. It's various accounts. Various people have spoken about these men in suits coming to visit them anytime they have extraterrestrial contact or an extraterrestrial account, so on and so forth. People are getting visits from these men. So this is a real occurrence. Again, Baba Yaanuwn has told us about it. That's an upcoming episode, so stay tuned for that. It's coming soon. Okay, but they're sent to keep an eye on Tesla.
Yeah. Not actually Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones. The actual real Men in Black.
Not the actors.
Yeah. So they're sent to keep an eye on Tesla. Now, January the 7th, 1943, Tesla is found dead in his hotel because he had a hotel where he was keeping a lot of his scientific notes, his journal, developing a lot of his ideas and inventions, essentially. He's said to have passed in his sleep. Obviously, Baba has made us aware that there was more to that and that the Majestic 12 was sent to keep an eye on him, essentially.
So we've got to put two and two together.
Yeah, we've got to put
suspicious.
two and two.
Just a little
That's
bit.
weird.
It's a little bit suspicious.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Quickly though,
Yeah.
sorry. Quick one for audio listeners. You might want to hop over to YouTube. There's going to be a lot of visuals in this episode.
Yeah. We've got a super editor who's just going to pop them up on the screen, isn't it?
Yeah, Shamu, stay.
Yeah.
Just bam, bam.
Yeah.
It's going to have all the visuals for you.
Yeah. I definitely think it's going to be beneficial for this episode and certain others to hop onto YouTube and just get the visual experience because we try and show you what was going on to the best of our ability. So definitely.
Yep.
So Tesla mysteriously
passes
away in his
That was the diagnosis by the doctor. He passed in his sleep.
Okay.
Yep.
Got you.
So, yes, at this point, we're in the year 1943. John von Neumann is spearheading the project at this point. Now,
and he's a mathematician?
He's
correct?
a mathematician.
Got you.
He's a mathematician. Now, John von Neumann, you might say that as far as rank, John von Neumann, while Tesla was around, may have been second in rank. You might make that argument. So John von Neumann now is spearheading.
He's in charge.
He's in charge come 1943. Now, Alfred Bielek and Duncan Cameron were concerned. They came to John von Neumann like, what Tesla was saying about this not being ready and this could be dangerous. Could he have been right? And John von Neumann knew there was a problem. So mind you, at this point, they've moved from using the small Navy ship to the infamous USS Eldridge. That one we see appear for no reason in the series Loki.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It
came out of nowhere.
Came out of nowhere in season 1, wasn't it?
Season 1 of Loki.
The Eldridge, it just shows up. Yeah. Shows up from nowhere. They're always doing that. They play with it though. They play with these things and just right in front of your face. They play with the facts.
Yep, hide the truth.
They play with the truth
in plain sight.
Exactly. Hide the truth in plain sight. So, yes. For any references, you want a little visual representation of the ship, check out Loki. I'm not plugging Loki. I do like Marvel, but I'm not plugging Loki. I'm just saying. It's out there.
Yeah.
It's out there. We're going to put the ship up on the screen anyway. So it's all good.
So, John von Neumann, at this point, the USS Eldridge actually came aboard 1942, but it was being modified and developed to suit the needs of the test that they were trying to perform. So about 1943, it was ready, and they moved on to using the USS Eldridge instead of the small Navy ship they were using. Now, John von Neumann, as I said, spearheading the project at this point, he's making adjustments of his own to the equipment, such as the masters mentioned things like he added another generator but had problems trying to sync that generator with the other generators.
Oh, so he added a generator.
That's right. That's right. So he was making modifications of his own. The bottom line is John von Neumann knew there was a problem too, which is why he was making modifications of his own. Now, during the period where they were developing the equipment, someone, I believe someone who belonged to the Navy, was zapped into a coma. Zapped by one of the generators that was misbehaving into a coma.
Like an electric shock type situation.
Exactly.
Coma.
Fortunately, he recovered in the next few months.
Well, good for him.
Yes.
Because some people, they didn't recover.
Make it. Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
So, their deadline, mind you, is for later on during 1943. So 1943 is a busy year. It's a busy year. Now, the next test they run on the USS Eldridge with people aboard, they switch on the switch. The ship goes optically invisible for a little while. However, when they flick off the switch and the ship returns and the people on it to visibility, the people are not quite there. They're disorientated, they're nauseated, they have headaches. They're delirious, essentially. They're not quite there. So something is wrong. John von Neumann can see that. Alfred, Bielek, Duncan, Cameron, the Navy can see that.
Can see
something's up.
And this is another test before the ultimate
test.
This is another one they did.
So they had plenty of warning signs.
So they had their evidence. They had the evidence. People came back delirious, headaches, nausea, etc., etc. Not quite right.
That's right.
So they knew something's...
This isn't quite working how it should be.
Got you.
Yeah. No point sending men to battle if when you flick on the switch, they're delirious.
They're delirious. And
you ain't going to win that battle.
You're not going to win.
Yeah. So by that point, the Navy are still saying, get on with it and give them a deadline of August 1943. Now, what they say at this point is rather than going for optical invisibility, let's focus on radar invisibility. So rather than being invisible to the naked eye, let's hide ourselves from radar systems so that when we're approaching enemies, they don't see us coming as far as their radar systems are concerned, if that makes sense. So by this point, John von Neumann, Alfred Bielek, Duncan Cameron, and all the people part of the team are trying to meet this deadline for August 1943, which is, as I like to call it, the infamous day of doom. This day on 1942.
The day of doom.
Mind you, when you search up the Philadelphia experiment, some sources say that that day was actually in October 1943, but more to the point is the story rather than the dates. Baba made us aware that it was August 1943 though. So that day approaches, the infamous day, and the experiment takes place on the USS Eldridge in Philadelphia, hence the term, the Philadelphia experiment. And they flick on that switch.
With people on board.
And the ship disappears for about an hour. So there's a blue-green glowy flash and the ship disappears. Now it disappears from radar, but what observers also say is it more or less becomes optically invisible. There's some sort of hazy outline, but it more or less becomes optically invisible. So
I always for that type of thing, I always point to like shows like Star Trek or the Avengers when they got the shield ship, Avengers 1, and they go invisible. But you can kind of see an outline in the sky type thing. That's the type of image I get in my head.
Exactly. Yeah. Bend and light, but not quite. You still see something there. Yeah. So did I already mention the blue-green glow flash?
Yeah, you said it went. You said it went.
Yeah. So sorry, that part happens after. So what happens? They flick on the switch. The ship. The Navy, the USS Eldridge disappears from visibility and radar for about an hour, give or take. Then there's a blue/green flash and the ship disappears completely.
Got you.
Mind you, third-party sources say that the ship appeared in Virginia 10 minutes before it disappeared completely.
Deep.
Yeah.
Deep.
So
it didn't just travel space.
it traverses through time as well.
Yeah.
And it's gone for about 3 to 4 hours. Now, when the ship reappears in Philadelphia, it is utter chaos and madness. There are people fused to the walls and the the solidity of the ship, fused to the equipment. There's someone who actually had his hands in the wall, so he's literally his hands had to be chopped off because he was stuck in the wall. The wall. Yeah. Just people fused to equipment. There's people floating away till all the metal in their bodies disappear and they die. There's people glowing. There's people stuck in what's known as deep freeze, which, as Bubba made us aware, is a concept where you're not aware of your surroundings, you're not aware of time, you're not aware of space, you're just there. You're just
there, but
you're not aware of anything.
Awareness. Got you.
Yeah, it's people are going mad.
Delirious,
nauseated. People are going mad. It's just utter chaos.
Yeah, some people just come back dead, or
yes, some people returned dead from when the ship came back to visibility. There's just it's
chaos. It's chaos.
All right,
it's madness.
It's chaos. Yeah. Now, what's important to mention is that Alfred Bielek and Duncan Cameron were in a different compartment in the ship, so they were in the hold of the ship, whereas most the Navy members or the crew members were in the, what you might refer to as the main deck of the ship or whatever.
So Cameron and Bielek are kind of
separate
on the ship.
Yeah.
They're still on the ship, but
they're still on the ship, but in a separate compartment.
Got you.
They're witnessing this and they're saying, this crazy.
Yeah,
we out. So
we out.
Yeah.
We out.
Peace. Yeah.
So they jump off board the ship, jumping into what they expect to be, water or whatever, somewhere that's not the ship.
Yeah.
But inadvertently, they jump through a time tunnel and land in the year 1983, 40 years in the future.
Damn.
So remember, current events are happening in 1943. They jump through a time tunnel and land in 1983,
Damn.
if that makes sense. So what Bubba explained is that so much energy was being utilized, so much electrical energy was being utilized on that ship, coupled with the fact that the Earth was on a particular cycle. So, they couldn't have picked a worse day to do that experiment, because what Bubba explained is that the planet was on its halfway peak in terms of its biosphere cycle or biorhythmical cycle. It was on its halfway peak. So there was a lot of electric magnetic energy being produced, and that literally tore a fiber in space-time, if that makes sense. And as we always say, when you understand the 4D model of the space-time continuum, and you study things like time dilation, theory of relativity, you know that time travel is very, very real, if that makes sense. So
they tore the fabric of space-time.
Exactly.
Because of all the energy that was being generated. Combined with the day that they did it.
Exactly.
Which happens to be the peak or some sort of biosphere peak.
Yes.
Of the planet.
Yes.
That's unlucky.
Yeah, very much so. Furthermore, what Bubba made us aware is that there were a lot of UFO sightings on the day. There were extraterrestrials actually trying to warn them not to go forward with the experiment. So even those entities from outer space were saying, guys, what you doing? Shut this down.
Don't do it.
Shut this down.
Don't do it.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
Shut it down.
So as I said, Duncan Cameron, Alfred Bielek jump off board the ship, inadvertently jump into a time tunnel 40 years into the future, land in 1983. Mind you, they land in Montauk, and Montauk is a famous site for what's known as the Montauk Project. So Bubba has made us aware that the Montauk Project was actually a spin-off of the Philadelphia experiment. So these Montauk projects came about as part of and results as part of the Philadelphia experiment, if that makes sense. When you're talking Montauk Project, you're talking hypnotism, you're talking mind wiping, you're talking things like de-aging, very out there sort of experiments.
That's what Stranger Things is based on, isn't it?
Yeah, there you go. There you go. So that's that type of time as well, isn't it? The 80s.
Yeah.
So it's a project that leads directly off the fact that the Philadelphia experiment happened, and that time tunnel was was created.
Yes. Yeah.
40 years from that 43 to 83.
Yes.
And whatever happened there, another project sprung off of that.
Yeah.
Called the Montauk Project.
Exactly. And even some of the UFO crafts that were sighted in the 1940s got caught in that time tunnel as well.
Right.
And winded up in Montauk in the 1980s. And, you know, people, governments, military bases, whomever, found these crafts and dismantled them. So this was all part of the Montauk Project
so some
as
of the
well.
Technology for the Montauk Project would have come from these crafts that got poured into the time tunnel.
Exactly.
Into the 80s.
Exactly.
Got you.
Now, going back to Alfred Bielek and Duncan Cameron, when they land in the 80s, they're greeted by a future version of John von Neumann. So remember, John von Neumann spearheading the project in the 1940s.
Got you.
Alfred Bielek and Duncan Cameron go into the future, and they meet a future version of John von Neumann, who is expecting them. Almost like, I knew this day would come.
That's what I was just thinking. I knew this day would come.
Right.
So he essentially says to them, guys, you have to get back and shut it down. So as Bubba made us aware, the reason for a lot of these side effects, what you might call side effects, people going crazy, people fused within the walls, etc., is because they didn't understand the concept of the zero time reference at the time. So the zero time reference locks on to the point in time where you were conceived. So if you're playing with things like teleportation, invisibility, things of that nature, you have to understand the concept of the zero time reference, because you're essentially moving someone between dimensions. So when they return, you want them to return as when you left them, essentially.
At in the same place and time, so to speak, as where you left them.
Exactly.
That makes sense. I feel like Avengers.
Endgame.
Yeah.
Is it? Yeah, that highlighted that pretty
Avengers
well.
Endgame, because that kind of illustrated that well. Like you said, because when he was first doing the time travel with Ant-Man, when Hulk was running the experiments using Ant-Man before the genius that is Iron Man turned up. He was literally moving him through time, and there was no locked on reference. So he might have come back a baby, he might have come back an old man. He wasn't locked on where you knew what and where he was. So that when you bring him back, you're bringing him back as exactly that point, so to speak, in his life and in time, so to speak. So perhaps that's a good movie illustration.
Very good reference. Very good reference
of what that's of what's taking place there. Yeah.
And the future version of John von Neumann, you know, understood that at that point. He was saying this, you know, this is what I'd missing. I think Bubba alluded to the fact that he had developed some sort of computer, or whether he had solely developed the computer or the computer was available by the 80s, that dealt with this concept of the zero time reference, etc.
So that's why people would really return to the ship dead or floated away,
exactly,
out of place, or out of mind, because that you haven't locked onto their zero time reference.
Yeah, what Bubba made us aware is that people that returned back dead, it's because they returned back after the day they were destined to die.
Got you.
So
they were at a different point in their life, and that point that they were at in their life was
no longer their life.
It was no longer their life. So they came back
literally. So you know, John von Neumann says you need to get back there, destroy the equipment, shut it down. So eventually, that's what they do, because there's a whole nother story as far as the 80s. The 1980s is concerned, but eventually Alfred Bielek and Duncan Cameron return back to the 40s, and they smash up the equipment, smash up the generators, smash everything up. They smash up the equipment, and from that point the project is silenced. The logs are wiped from the USS Eldridge. It's all very hush hush and sweep under the carpet, and nothing to see here. So
as usual.
Standard business for the government.
They're not really trying to tell the truth. Got you.
And tying into the Montauk Project, you know, Bubba made us aware of a lot of the focus of the Montauk Project was actually erasing people's memories of the account of what happened in the Philadelphia experiment, if that makes sense. So it's a big story, and there was a lot to it and a lot going on, and it's just it
sounds huge, to be honest.
Huge. I
suppose that memory wiping kind of reminds us again of the Men in Black, innit? Because that's what they do. Turn up with their neuralizers and flash you.
Yeah,
You don't
and
remember.
it's not a far-fetched thing at all. The brain is just an instrument. It's just an instrument that works off of electricity. Because if you understand the body, you understand that we have bioelectricity within us. So if you know how to manipulate the brain and the brain waves, you of course can erase the brain's memories. Of course. Yeah. So
Yeah, it's deep. It's a deep one. It's a deep one. It's a I see Nefrutat. They're like, whoo. Yeah, it's a long
Crazy.
story. Yeah, like you said, there's more branches to it that we probably have to cover a different time, because you start going into what happened in the 80s, how long it took them to get back to the 40s.
because it wasn't straight away. There was a lot, like we said, that happened in the 80s before they eventually got back to the 40s and
Smashed up the
rectified
equipment.
everything. Yeah,
Smashed up
essentially.
the equipment, and when they smashed it up after that, everything shut down. They wiped the logs. They pretend it never happened.
Yeah.
So much to it. So much to it. We've got to talk about love at some point too.
Yeah, because love played a huge role in this
part,
story.
yeah.
We got to do a segment on that. But that is a huge story. That's a very interesting story. I understand that the time travel or the time tunnel that was created also created a shift in time.
That's right, which affects us to this very day. So there was a 3-year shift in time, as Bubba. A 3-year shift in time, as Bubba made us aware. So where, for instance, it would be 2000, it's actually 2003, if that makes sense. So there was a 3-year shift in time, literally.
Got you. So which has just such relevance to today, because there's certain natural occurrences that happen on the planet, the solar system, the galaxy, so on and so forth. And if we've shifted time by 3 years, it means a lot of events that are always set to occur 3 years later. You know, instead of at the time. So we always talk about this age of existence, this last 6,000 years. We always talk about it ending in 2000 or 2003 because things have shifted. We talk about a vortex as well that opens every 10 years, but does it open on the 2000, 2010, 2020, or does it open 2003, 2013, 2023, so on and so forth? There's a lot of shifts, and there's a lot of effects of this shift, if that makes sense, in terms of the natural occurrences on the planet. And so we always make that clear, and a lot of that just ties right back in to the Philadelphia experiment.
Yeah. They didn't know what they were playing with, and should have never have done it. It's the bottom line, really. But it happened, and we are where we are now.
We are where we are. Where we are.
What can I say?
The intake of breath.
Yeah.
The intake of breath. So it's been hush hush since then. I guess this is all credited. What do they say this is then? If they're hush hushing and saying it never happened, what do they say? The various stories and the various accounts.
They say it's a fictional account of. I fail to remember the guy's name at the moment, but they attribute it to someone. Carl M. Allen.
Carl M. Allen, but it was under some alias, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Carl M. Allen. So they said he made up the story.
He made up the whole story, essentially. Okay. And, there's a lot of the usual things, isn't it? Conspiracy theorists and, do you know what I mean? Branches of who believes they actually happen and who believes it's just fiction. And it's used to populate fiction, like fictional stories. Like you said, there's been 2 movies on the Philadelphia experiment. I'm sure the Philadelphia experiment is mentioned on a movie recently that's on like Prime or Netflix or something like that. Yeah. Probably. So it became a part of that fiction culture, if you like, whereas Bubba made us aware, no, this is very real. This was very real, and these were the real people that were involved in this experiment. Your Nikola Teslas, your John von Neumanns, your Thomas Townsend Brown, these actual scientists that were involved in this. And he even said, to a degree, Einstein was aware of what was going on. Einstein, at the time, I believe, had other things to do, but he was aware that this experiment was going on. Because it was no biggie during that time period. Like you said, there were different branches of different projects going on, if that makes sense. It was no biggie at that point.
Yeah, because of times of war as well.
Yeah,
so no biggie.
But even online, you can see Alfred Bielek talking on it. There's that footage circulating online for all those people into it.
Yeah. So that's why I say do your searches. Ttäbaʄ for that. Do your searches.
Oh yeah, because as you told me that, because you said was Alfred Bielek's memory wiped, but then it came back to him or something like that.
Hey, Rekhtu.
Yes, yeah. So that was I believe that was actually something Bubba mentioned
As a result of the movie, his memory was wiped. But when he saw the movie,
when he saw the movie, or that might have been something I read from a third party source actually that said that as a result, his memory was wiped. But as a result of the movie, he started having an influx of what actually happened.
Yeah. It's like
Men in Black.
Men in Black, right?
Yeah.
Tommy Lee Jones.
Yeah, Men in Black
K.
too,
What's
right?
this? Agent K, right?
Agent K. Yeah.
Yeah, because his memory was wiped, but it triggered after some failed attempts to bring his memory back. Yeah, they was able to trigger the revival of these memories, and he remembered who he was. So yeah, it's deep. It's a deep story. Various branches to it. I do recommend doing your research on it. Man from Planet Rizq.
Such a huge book.
Huge book.
Full of
Timeless
information.
book.
Yeah.
Timeless book. It's it's a great book. Obviously written in the previous school of Baba Yaanuwn that he's taken us through, but a very valid book, a very pertinent book, and it goes into a lot of different things that we're actually going to cover in the coming weeks. So we're just out with Philadelphia, you're talking about clones and doubles, the planet Rizq, the 19th galaxy, Ilion, so on and so forth. So a lot of information in there and information in there that we're going to touch on. But yeah, that's a huge story. That's a deep story, and it's it didn't go after the guy who was fused to the wall and had. I'm just like, damn.
Yeah.
Actually, the movie illustrates that.
Yeah.
The 1980 something movie.
Yeah.
At the end, you see people fused to the boat. It's crazy.
Painful.
Yeah. So it's mad. It's mad. It's an interesting one as well about Tesla, because even you mentioned Einstein. Growing up in the Western schools, we heard a lot about scientists like Einstein. We heard a lot about scientists like Newton and so on and so forth. We didn't hear a whole bunch about Tesla.
No. I personally never heard Tesla till I started reading Bubba's books. And then when you look it up, Tesla was a huge deal. You know, he had quite a unique mind, and the things he was working on, were just different level. Obviously, we're talking about the AC induction motor, which is critical. So it's like, how can you not mention his name?
Exactly.
Like you're mentioning an Einstein or whomever.
Exactly.
AC induction motor is critical. But a lot of the reason was because Tesla, the things he was doing didn't suit the agenda of whether you call it the powers that be. So obviously, I already mentioned free energy. Tesla was working on things like the Teslascope, where sorry, not the Teslascope, the some sort of device,
Anti-war device.
Anti-war device was one of them.
Yeah.
Where the master explained that he actually developed a device that had a polarized curtain of air, if that makes sense, that emitted such a frequency it was capable of stopping war. And the master said, hasn't really been used to this day because
we know why. Wars make money.
Wars make money.
Wars make money. And wars are happening for various reasons. We know there's certain conflicts taking place now. Yeah, wars make money. They ain't trying to stop wars.
Yeah, thoughtography. That's the one I was thinking of. Thoughtography, where Tesla was working on the concept of taking the actual mind's eyes images and projecting them on something physical like a TV or something like that. So he was convinced that the images in the mind, because they essentially get projected on the retina, they could be projected on something physical, if that makes sense. So there's a lot of what you might term out there projects that Tesla was working on. So that's why typically when it comes to Western science, they don't mention his name in the same light. But if you look at what Tesla was doing, Tesla was playing with radio waves before Guglielmo Marconi. So Guglielmo Marconi is credited as the Italian inventor that started using radio waves as communication. Exactly. But Tesla was doing that long before he invented that method of communication.
Got you.
So yeah, you are talking about he was on a different level in terms of his scientific inventions and concepts.
I got you. But for reasons that we can see, that they kept it quiet, or they haven't certainly spoken about it as much as they've spoken about others in the same light. Deep. Great to have you telling that story. I will admit that. I won't even say I think or I guess. I won't say it.
I appreciate it.
That was a solid one.
That was a solid one. That story is it's a huge story as well. A lot of facts to recall in that story, and like you said, we've touched on it. We've gone through the main sort of basis of the story, but there's so many different branches of that story, details that we can go into and that we may well go into following this. So Ttäbaʄ, for breaking that down. Huge experiment. Look into it. Do your research.
What does Ṭabaʄ mean? Never.
Oh,
No, I'm joking.
Nefrutat, like
For the people.
translate for the people. Ṭabaʄ means thank you. Thank you. It's in our language. You'll hear me say Ṭabaʄ and Ṭabaʄat. Ṭabaʄat when you're thanking a female, and Ṭabaʄ when you're thanking a male.
Yeah. And I would say Antak Athir Afal.
Yes, I am welcome.
Yes.
That's right. That means you are welcome. It's a very important story. Definitely dive into that. Do your reading. Man from Planet Rizq. Read that book. And there's a few other titles you can read that we might pop in the links for you to read. But we're going to draw it to a close. On that note, great episode. I enjoyed it. Subscribe.
What are you waiting for?
Subscribe. If you haven't subscribed already, why not? Hit the subscribe button, turn on your notification bell. Follow us. We've got bags of content coming out. Really, we're just getting started. We're just gathering our momentum. And the people who know us, we're gathering our momentum. About to hit them. We very much enjoy being student teachers of the master teacher.
Indeed.
Which is what we are. So subscribe. Stay tuned. We're on YouTube. We're on most of the podcast platforms, your main ones, which Nefrutat, I'm sure, will make sure gets posted.
Yeah, I put the links in the description.
There you go. We're on social media. We're on Instagram. I know we're a little bit on Facebook from time to time. We're on TikTok.
Definitely on TikTok.
We're on TikTok. In fact, we're about to get moving on there again. That's where a lot of that's where people get hyped. They get upset or they get happy. It's very extreme on TikTok. They either love us or they're like, why are you here? It's battles. It's good.
It's good. It's good conversation.
No. In all seriousness, it's good. It generates good conversation. We've generated some good conversation from some of the things we've put out there. People thinking, which is what we're here to do, hopefully. And so yes, you can follow us on all of those platforms. And just stay tuned. But we'll wrap it up there. Ṭabaʄ again. Rekhtu and Amakhu. Ṭabaʄ, Nefrutat. Ṭabaʄ, Amakhu.
I was about to. You didn't give us a chance.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm waiting.
Seems kind of fake now, but Ṭabaʄ, Amakhu.
Yeah.
Amakhu Satak.
Ṭabaʄ Amakhu Satak.
No, it was good to be here, and on to the next one. But for now, farewell and wadu.
Wadu.